Welcome to You Can Cook Anything with Bob and JP. I'm JP. Today I'm cooking a Lebanese dish called bint Ahmad. It's a red bean dish using kidney beans, and it's something that is a family favorite of mine. It's something that's not difficult to make, so it gets made a lot in our house. It's also nutritious because it's made with beans, doesn't have a lot of fat or calories. Let's get started. So when I say the recipe is simple, I really mean it. See, this is what it looks like. You can pause the video if you want to take a closer look at it. It barely takes half a page. Alright, so we're going to start with these ingredients. And first, I'm going to get these out of the way. Now, chop the onions. Like a lot of recipes, this one relies on getting its flavor from fresh onions, chopped to a medium dice, and then fried in olive oil. So let's get those onions cut up. Frying can take a long time. It takes a while for the onions to dry out until they get to the point where they start browning a little bit. So I'm going to show you a shortcut that I use when I'm in a hurry. It prevents me from having to stand over the stove for so long as the onions kind of reduce. And that's why I'm putting these onions in a big glass bowl. So once you've got the onions in the bowl, every last one of them, you're going to spread them out a little bit so that they kind of cover the bottom of the bowl. And then you're going to get your favorite cling film. Now, cover the bowl with the cling film. You want to get the bowl covered enough so that steam can be captured under that cling film. Essentially, you're drying out the onions so that they brown better once they hit the saucepan. Microwave them on high for 10 minutes and be glad you're not standing over a stove. Oh, you've got 10 minutes. You know what that means. While the horse is dancing and you're enjoying the show, I'm going to tell you that there is a link in the description of this video to a recipe book that has several Lebanese recipes in it. They are not super detailed recipes. However, they should help you in making this recipe and several others that you might see in our videos in the future. Once the onions are done in the microwave, carefully remove the plastic wrap. That steam can really burn you, so use a glove or something else to protect your hands. Move that aside and get your saucepan ready. Heat it up about medium-high heat. Add some olive oil. The olive oil is really going to help with the browning here, so don't be too stingy with it. Add your onions to the pan. Now I've cut out most of the browning, but this shouldn't take you more than about 5 to 7 minutes. And that's really because you've sped up the process using the microwave. But keep stirring the onions, don't leave them unattended, and be very careful because they are bound to stick to the bottom and burn if you don't keep them moving. Okay, so these onions at this point are translucent, a little bit brown on the edges. They could probably go a little bit longer, but I like them like this, so take a good look at that. Once it's got that color on the edges, you've got the flavor that you're going to get from the browning. That's really what you want to do, is get that flavor into your dish. Yep, that looks good. Now it's time to add the beans. 1 can, a second can, then I also went ahead and added half a can of water. The amount of water that you add to this recipe is going to be something you're going to need to judge, because water helps with the consistency of the final dish, and it depends on how much you cook it, how long it goes. You're just going to have to judge. The next important ingredient in this recipe is tomato paste. You're going to use a whole can of tomato paste in this. Tomato paste not only adds flavor and richness to this dish, it's extremely important for the texture of the final dish. Now, a whole can of tomato paste is twice as much as you see in the recipe that I showed at the beginning. That's because this is a double batch. I've actually doubled all the ingredients, in case you're wondering why the video doesn't match the recipe. I have to make a double batch because this is so popular in my house, it gets eaten pretty quick. Also, it's much more convenient to use a whole can of tomato paste than it is to use half a can of tomato paste. Stir that together good, and next you're going to add the two main flavor components that are spices in this dish: allspice and cinnamon. Add some salt as well, and fresh ground pepper. And that's all the ingredients in this dish. Mix this up, get it well incorporated. You're going to continue to cook this for at least another 5 minutes, perhaps 10 minutes. The guide here is you're looking for a specific consistency. You want something that's not too thick, definitely not runny. And the challenge here is to continue heating it and cooking it over medium heat without having it burn to the bottom of the pan. Because as this gets drier and thicker, there's a real danger that it will stick to the bottom and burn. What you see here is pretty much the consistency you want. I hit that right on target. But of course, as you continue to heat it for another 5 to 10 minutes, you may need to add just a little bit more water. And after that, these beans are ready to serve. About 2 big spoonfuls like this is what I consider to be a serving. After I put it on a plate like this, I add a loaf of the local Syrian bread. If you don't have bread like this in your area, you can use almost any kind of flatbread, really. Now it's time for me to give it a try. The way you should eat this is to rip off a piece of the bread that you're using and just scoop a mouthful right into your mouth. Yep, that came out perfect. Usually near the end you're going to want to adjust the saltiness and perhaps the pepper, but this one was just right. And that's how you make red beans the Lebanese way. I hope you enjoyed this recipe. It's one of my favorite foods to eat. Try it out. You might really like it. Remember what Bob and I always say, you can cook anything.